morning, everybody. Great to be with you again. My name is Gabrielle Inzirillo, and I'm thrilled to be back to moderate this wonderful session dedicated to the venture capital perspective, the venture capital perspective. Love big words. Now, with me this morning is Issa Gabi from Access Bridge, Hassan Haider from Plus VC, and Jad Salame from Phoenician Funds. Welcome, gentlemen. A pleasure to have you on board.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks so much, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Now, thank you. Let's kick it off with a round of introductions. The goal is really to let the audience know a little bit about who you are, what gets you going, and what kind of things you're investing in at the moment. That way, it'll give us a little bit of a better context to better understand the ideas you're about to throw at us later on. Can I ask Issa to start?
Sure, happy to. So, Issa Ghabi, I'm one of the co-founders and managing partner of Access Bridge Ventures. So we are a newly established VC fund out of ADGM that is looking to invest at the earlier part of the value chain. So we do seed, bridge, pretty much pre-Series A investing. We'd like to be that first, second, or co-investor that comes into that round at the beginning of the value chain. Personally, I've been doing this for around 16 years, number of gigs across the value chain, but this is the first fund that Access Bridge is overseeing. In terms of what we like good businesses that can make us money.
Joking aside, who doesn't?
I would hope everyone here would. But in terms of sectorial focus, we are quite opportunistic, but there's certain themes we like. FinTech is on top of that list, but definitely like to invest in health tech, edutech, e-commerce and e-commerce enabling businesses, enterprise, the usual things that people look at nowadays. And yeah, we're happy to be here.
Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. Can I next move on to Hassan Haider?
Okay. Sure. Hi. My name's Hassan. I'm a managing partner at Plus VC. Plus VC is a seed-stage venture capital firm that invests in the Middle East, North Africa, and in diaspora from the MENA region. I've been investing in startups from the MENA region for the past 10, 11 years. Did about 180 investments over the last 3 years in the previous fund that we were managing at 500. And now, Plus VC's thesis is to invest early and often. So we're looking to invest at seed and follow-ons at Series A in about 100 to 120 startups over the next 3 years. Our check size is about $200,000 for first check, and then up to $1 million in follow-on. That's what we do. We're pretty agnostic in terms of sector and stage, and looking forward to sort of supporting the ecosystem much further.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Jad, can you tell us a few words about you?
Sure. So I'm Jad Salame. I am the managing partner of Phoenician Funds. So Phoenician Funds is a MENA-based venture capital firm. So we are in between Beirut and Abu Dhabi. We have launched our first fund back in 2015 that primarily focused on FinTech, EdTech, and health tech. And since then, we have made more than 20 investments in startups in the region. And now we are focusing on launching a new fund, which is Phoenician Fund 2, which focuses primarily also on FinTech. So we're very passionate about FinTech. This is a space that we like very much. And we will focus on seed stage Series A, given the emergence of this sector. So we believe the opportunity is within these stages. Prior to that, I have worked in banking, in investment banking and consulting, always covering financial services. So this is why we focus a lot on FinTech, and we believe there would be huge opportunities. In terms of what we look for, same as mentioned by my colleagues, definitely we look for businesses that can scale, that can grow, that have healthy unit economics, and especially founders that are passionate and committed to their venture. And we believe that this is the key criteria also for us when we make the investment decision. I'm very happy to be here and very excited to be part of the ADGM ecosystem as well.
Super cool. Now, I'm going to be super honest, guys. I was about to berate all of you because I didn't hear FinTech. I heard EduTech. I heard Health Tech. I heard all sorts of tech. I didn't hear FinTech. And then Jad came in and he saved you all just saying that. So feel a little bit ashamed.
No, it was actually the first one I mentioned.
Did you? I'm not so sure if I heard that. We're going to, I'm going to come back. I'm going to listen to this all over again later on in the day when we're done. No, but thank you. No, I say that because FinTech is very, very close to my heart. And we all know, that I stand by it as an industry. And evidently the Digital Lab, though we are going to open it up for the wider ecosystem because it is very important on that front to be agnostic. We are definitely starting out on the FinTech side. And so to kick off this panel a little bit, I want to sort of give it a little bit of context. Now, you're evidently allowed to disagree with me and disagree with me all you want. But, we often say that VC firms are a little bit siloed out. We say that, everything falls down to one-on-one warm introductions. And if you don't have that one-on-one warm introduction, it can be hard to get in front of your faces and to be able to pitch appropriately. And creating those effective and personal links can be a little bit difficult, which is why we're trying, with the Digital Labs Marketplace to build an environment where essentially startups can do rapid prototyping, can really get in front of corporates, really get POCs out there, and also get in front of people like you, right, who can actually see their value. So ultimately, my first question is, we're going to be trying to fill a gap in the market by connecting the dots and creating a many-to-many gateway, as to say, of relationships. How are you seeing it as a value add tool to yourselves as VCs to be on this platform? Who wants to kick it off? Issa, you're up there on my screen. Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So I think, listen, introductions by people people who are close to you in the ecosystem, people you trust, usually tend to give you the best deals. I'll vouch for that. So, I've done probably like 65 deals in my career in VC, and most of the good ones have been done. But you'll get the occasional gem that applies to you through these various platforms and so on. So I think with what we have here specifically, could potentially be one of those venues where it gives us investors early access to startups that are taking the right steps, let's say, in integrating into the ecosystem. It gives us the ability to see them firsthand, ability to see these companies that are developing that traction early on, and that is very important for us. So, for example, we don't invest in ideas or concepts. We like to see something tangible, a bit of traction, the model validated, some of the economics proven, and a platform like this will help showcase that, mitigate that, and allow us to get, quote unquote, first dibs, as I mentioned before, on these deals.
We like deals. We like traction. We like seeing things that are concrete. I mean, that makes sense as a VC. Evidently, you need that. Would anyone else have to tag along on why they see the platform could potentially add benefit to their pipeline and such?
Sure. I think just echoing what Issa said, it seems like a really interesting source of potential deals that are actually active, have been going through the right steps with the regulators, and really could be interesting for us to look at it in a deeper way. I mean, we're trying to change the way that VCs typically look at deals. Ace is right. Most deals the best deals are usually referrals from other people because there's some sort of social proof there. But what we're trying to do with Pulse VC is we're pretty open. The application form is on our website. And even when we get deals that come in through referrals or recommendations, we still ask them to apply on the website. It just makes our whole process much better. So we're trying to democratize the access to us, at least. And so by plugging into things like the Digital Lab, hopefully will allow us to have a wider pool and get more people to apply and more potential really interesting outliers for us to invest in. And honestly, once we're done with our investment, it probably 20-30% of our deals will be in FinTech. So there's our FinTech thing. And what the Digital Lab will probably allow us to do is enable our FinTech startups to be able to benefit from the platform and really take advantage of everything that's available there. So that those two aspects really are something that I think as Plus VC we're going to benefit from.
Perfect. And so that really leads on to my next point quite well. And I'm going to direct this question at Jad. As investors, right, where do you see that startups really need the most support in order to scale their solutions and business propositions? Because ultimately, we've been talking a lot about how we don't like just ideas. We like concrete, tangible business models and actual product solutions. How can we get them that support necessary? Can we get that tangible support?
Look, I think here we have to differentiate a little bit between fintech and other sectors. I think for other sectors, it's much easier to find at early stages these boxes checked before you consider an investment. However, in fintech, it's very different because it has to be you're operating in a regulated environment, and you have to have certain checks in place before you can launch even your solution, and before you can test it, and before you can pilot it. So for fintech in particular, the value add and where we see the major support is in bringing together early on the various stakeholders that operate within the financial services, and that includes the regulator, that includes the banks, that includes other fintechs, that includes other types of platforms, investors and startups, founders, etc. So if you want early on within fintech in particular, definitely there needs to be support to allow and enable these companies to quickly test and have some kind of product market fit before a proper investment can go into these startups. So this platform will enable us as venture capitalists, and also all the other stakeholders, to kind of see in reality how will this solution work, that includes all these stakeholders that are today that you cannot overcome. Basically, you have to go through this process because you are dealing with the financial services and the finances of people and potential customers.
Uphill battle, right? It's an uphill battle. And ultimately, that's true when you do make a point that it's not always the case with other sectors. That's not to say that it's easier to do a startup regardless in other sectors, right? Everything has its own, merits, but also drawbacks and difficulties. But it definitely does see that, when it comes down to it, if you're touching people's finances, if you're connecting to, very, very valuable infrastructure, it can be, we can be placing a lot of precaution that you don't do in other sectors, right? It's the precautionary principle.
It's by nature, the nature of the business and of the sector is by, it has to be regulated because it includes, the covering the finances of people and having that fiduciary responsibility, so to speak.
So evidently, what you're saying, and guys, Issa, please feel free to jump in on this. It's fundamentally a question that you need many, many stakeholders to jump in. You can't just push something alone.
No, I think just to add, to echo what Jad is saying and to build on what you just said, I think different startups and sectors have their own challenges, right? FinTech one specifically, for us as investors, one of the biggest risks we do see is regulatory risk, for understandable reasons. And that is, I think, a blessing and a curse at the same time. A curse in the sense that ecosystem, or the FinTech ecosystem in the Middle East, has not picked up yet because of those regulatory restrictions, but for understandable reasons. So a platform like this that helps us mitigate that, try to resolve that, get us closer to the regulator, the central bank, the FSRA, and so on and so forth, helps make life easier for us. We are pan-MENA investors, or pan-region investors based on Abu Dhabi, and the ability for us to have our companies test and showcase, either it be with the regulators, with the banks, with the end consumer, test case that get the right regulation in place, gives us a bit of that comfort. And a platform like this, if it allows us to do it and it works, then we're all going to be happy campers, right? And at the end of the day, be investing good entrepreneurs, good businesses, with some of that risk mitigated.
No, I see that. And ultimately, if more people see successful fintech founders, it'll, success begets success, right? There'll be more people that will jump into it, and it'll make the pie just genuinely bigger. Which leads me to my next question ultimately, because you talked about the regulator a lot and how it's evidently either supportive or really not that supportive. So my next question is, is going to be really push that out to Hassan, right? So be careful. I'm coming for you. And it's about commercial sandboxes. And it isn't not just about commercial sandboxes, but commercial sandbox and other sandboxes that are being put together by other entities and such. We found that fundamentally they can be very hit or miss. The intention is fantastic always, right? But because there have been a variety of expectations from different players, people want different things out of it. Ultimately, my question to you is, do you see there being a key differentiating factor in going for this sort of macro approach by a regulator and jumping into the whole sandbox field to push that forward?
Yeah, I think, honestly speaking, what ADGM has been doing as a regulator, getting involved at all steps and all stages, regulating us as VC firms, working with startups quite closely, working with fintech companies. Like there's just been a lot of really amazing approaches that have been there. And I think that makes sense, right? You need a whole ecosystem in order for any sort of single partner within that ecosystem to succeed. You need the VCs, you need the funding, you need the regulation, you need the startups. Everything sort of needs to be there. And so by being all encompassing, it sort of works pretty well. And I think that's something that's been in ADGM sort of forte. They've been very active at reaching out to different partners, stakeholders, and everything. And I think even the new digital labs initiative is something that most regulators probably wouldn't have even tried to do. But it's one of those things where it's like plugging the ecosystem together. So it's been super, super great. There are always issues with different sandbox environments across the region or around the world. I think one of the common issues is trying to get other parties to play well with companies that are in the sandbox, because the people that are outside would be like, well, you're not regulated, but you're not regulated, so I don't really know what to do with you. And so with this outreach and all this stuff, with all the partnerships that have been built, I think that helps startups within the sandbox to really be able to expand and start real operations, not just be in sort of very testing phase. And then it's the biggest obstacle to most startups and fintech sandboxes is actually graduating from that sandbox. Most sandboxes don't have any regulations that come after, and so like they just get sort of stuck in limbo. And thankfully, we've seen that ADGM's been pretty good at that. So that whole, looking at the whole universe and constellation of things that are operating and working together within an ecosystem and bringing them all together and working with them closely is probably one of the most important things you can do as a regulator.
It's true. I forget what the saying is. It's the path. I don't even want to say it, but how the road is paved with well intentions and it doesn't go in a place where we want it to go, regardless. But Jad, when we did evidently, the audience knows this. We evidently had a quick chat prior to starting this session, about ideas when we did this to get on board. You mentioned something about passporting. I just want to, poke you into that direction, because evidently passporting across sandbox is kind of important. Could I get your thoughts on that?
Yes, sure. So if you want, going back to Isa's point, the major problem that we have is, if you want, from our perspective, when you are pan-regional and you look at MENA, you look at the numbers and you see, okay, you have X million of people that are unbanked, you have that much of gap in SME funding. So you have all these kind of, selling points. However, when you look at FinTech, you realize that the regulatory framework is so fragmented across the various jurisdictions. Even from a traditional regulatory perspective, so not even going into innovation and fintech, already the existing prevailing regulatory frameworks are very different. So what works in the UAE does not necessarily work in Saudi Arabia, for example, or in Kuwait, or in Egypt. So a winning proposition would be to have these linkages together, whereby a company that graduates from the digital lab in Abu Dhabi can actually have an easier way in Saudi Arabia, which is also a very scalable market, without going and replicating, if you want, or tailoring even, or going through a new process to set up and going through a new sandbox and a new approach to a new market. And I think this is a tricky subject amongst regulators and amongst the various, sandboxes that are being launched, because we know that there is, some sort of competition to attract talent and to set up, etc. But there is, I think, and I strongly believe, there is scope to take up that challenge and find a way to kind of have some sort of passporting for, prioritizing the key subsectors within FinTech. This will add a lot of value for the ecosystem in the region and the positioning of also Abu Dhabi and ADGM in that sense.
No, it's definitely not in itself an issue there, but you can definitely see that startups nowadays, they want, no matter where they start, whether they sprung up in Riyadh, whether they're sprung up in Abu Dhabi, whether they're sprung up in Beirut, they have this regional ambition from the get-go. They don't want to be a national company. They want
to scale.
Exactly. They want to be a Middle Eastern powerhouse before taking over the world and getting on NASDAQ. But ultimately, that does make me wonder, because evidently you've all chosen to operate out of ADGM. That was a choice. How do you see the ecosystem around here and around ADGM evolving over this year? Whoever wants to go first.
I'm happy to take a stab at it, actually. So I haven't been to the office specifically in a long time because of obviously COVID. So I was at the office earlier this week, and I was pleasantly surprised, right? There's a nice little ecosystem emerging. A lot of entrepreneurs that I've seen before or haven't, a lot of people introducing themselves. It's a nice positive vibe. For us specifically, as Access Bridge, we wanted a local jurisdiction in the region. ADGM is one of the few that you can do that. We wanted a safe jurisdiction to protect our stakeholders, our investors. Obviously, ADGM helps do that. And more importantly, we wanted access, right? So being here in Hub 71, servicing the wider region, has proven positive so far. And obviously having the right rules, frameworks, and regulations to do that is key. And that is why we chose to be here at ADGM as opposed to somewhere abroad or offshore.
Thank you. Warms my heart to hear it. I don't know, gentlemen, if you have any other points you'd like to add.
Yeah, I think just following up with what Aisha said, ADGM has sort of made sense. We looked at all the different jurisdictions in the MENA region. It was the most supportive for VC as an asset class, and for fund managers like us that are just getting started, it was pretty great. So it was almost a no-brainer decision.
No,
yeah.
I think also the really nice thing about ADGM is that the venture capital framework in general was very well thought and tailored to also existing and emerging venture capital funds that want to set up. So I think that also played a big role, for example, in our decision to be based in ADGM, on top of the other fintech initiatives as a fintech focused fund. We believe that it is the right place to be. It's the right place to be.
Well, we're certainly trying to make it that way. Ultimately, I mean, and we are wrapping up this session now, so do feel free to jump in if you have any other points. From the discussions we've had over the last 20-25 minutes, it's clear that fundamentally, and maybe we've been slowed down a little bit because, well, 2020 was 2020. Let's not talk about that. But there's still this desire to fundamentally just make the pie bigger, right? In order for everybody to get what they want out of it, either have a successful startup or do successful, investing and have a great portfolio. The pie just needs to get better, bigger, and tastier eventually, in order for people to be able to connect and better connect amongst each other. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Do you have any final points you'd like to mention, either about the Abu Dhabi ecosystem, about the Digital Lab, even, some shameless selling points on behalf of your own funds? Feel free.
No, it was honestly really great to participate in this, and we're looking forward to further developments in the Abu Dhabi ecosystem. It really is emerging as probably one of the fastest growing and most interesting ecosystems that we're looking at in terms of investments and deals. And if there's anyone who's interested in working with a fund in the seed stage, we're always open and happy to work with anyone really that's trying to build something really great. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.